The world and the future is shaped by solutions. It is shaped by those solutions that get converted into action. So it's not necessarily the best solutions. It's a solution that gets the most people attracted to. And you know what? Here lies the problem. Because if you look throughout the world, it's not always the most clever people with the best solutions who sit in the most powerful positions. Huh? Can we agree on that? Look at your government. No, not your government. But there are certain governments in the world where we know, no, maybe they are a little bit mediocre. Or look at companies. It's not always that your boss is the most clever person, but he or she has the power to implement his or her solutions. And, nowadays that is more relevant than ever because of the internet. If you look at podcasts, at YouTubes, it's not always the YouTube video or the podcast with the best content that gets the most attention. If you hear some of the podcasts, sometimes you might think, well, that was not an intellectual revelation. But it's also with you. I'm sure you know that situation. You sit in a meeting and you hear one person who gets all the attention, the loudest one. And you sit in the back and think, what a jerk. He hasn't got a clue, but still he gets the attention. You know what? That hurts because I know you have the better solutions. Sometimes you are really the most clever people in the room. But you know what? No one listens to you. And that is the problem. So the world, and that is the big danger, is not always shaped by the most clever people and by the best solutions. And the thing about solution and cleverness is when you are in that meeting and you didn't get the attention, you think one thing, I have to make another education. I have to book a new seminar because I'm not clever enough. But you know what? It's always the other way around. Most of you are clever enough. The thing is only you are missing of tools how to attract people. Because it's always the other way around. First you have to attract people and then they are eager to listen to you. Now I see some of you think, no, it's about cleverness. You know what? That's why you are still single. Huh? That's why you are still single, but I will prove it to you. Two women are sitting in a bar. They're having a great ladies' night out. They're having real fun. Sitting in a bar, having a chat, having great drinks, and the music is loud. Just a wonderful evening. Both of them are single, and they are looking for a man. But women don't do it very obviously. They talk to each other and very quickly they look around in the room and they see each and every man. Now you think, nah, I don't watch any man. Yes, you do. Only your subconsciousness is clever enough to delete all the idiots. But still you saw them. And while chatting, they're looking at this side and they see two men at the bar. And the men are also talking, but the music is so loud the women don't hear the man. They only see their facial expressions, their body language. And one of them has very quick motions, eyebrows up, smiling a lot of strong and big gestures. And one of the ladies is triggered by that. She looks at that person and she is fascinated by him. You know why? Because she has an inner feeling, an inner desire for enthusiasm, for activity, and for temperament. And you know what? His body language promises those needs to fulfill. And that's why she is so fascinated by him. But her friend, she thinks, what a nervous guy. But she's lucky because his friend has a completely different body language. His movements are very slow, very calm, like a sailboat on a sea. Now she's completely fascinated. You know why? Because she has an emotional need for stability, for predictability, for trust. She is looking for the shoulder to lean on. And his stable body language promises her to fulfill those needs. And that is why we always fall in love in body language. And if you think, well, I'm always having bad luck with men, you know what? That is because you promise something that always attracts the wrong man or the wrong women. So if you want to attract different people, you have to promise something different. And that brings us back to science and to future. The clever people often, and I have been working on human body language for more than 25 years. And you know what? The biggest problem is that the clever people always think it's always about the content. Content rules, they always say. And that is true. Content is important, but only afterwards. Only afterwards. Only after they have realized you are attractive enough. You promise me competence. You promise me likability. And the thing about body language is, if you think, I want to be taken seriously, I want to be taken competent, then you're making something wrong, because the body language of competence sometimes is dead. But in the first moment, people think, do I want to have communication with that person? Believe me, a person who walks like this, they all want just to get rid of you. So the first thing is think of our brain structure. And our brain structure says, John McLean said that in the 1950s, the first decisions are still made by the brain stem. And the brainstem, you know the word fight or flight in communication. That just means, do I want to have more communication with that person? Do I want to listen to that person? Or do I want to get rid of that person? And that is why always be a likable person from the first moment on. Be a likable person. Now, you want to get tools how to be a likable person. Number one, show reaction. Show reaction to other people. And we rarely do that. If you talk to someone and something happens over there, you still talk to them. If someone enters the room, you still talk to them, and this person thinks they didn't see me. If you're clever, you turn to that person. Or if your husband or your wife on the weekend asks you for help and you're sitting in your chair and she says to you, can you help me something? And you do, then your body language promised that you don't have any idea of wanting to help her. So, number one, show reaction. But the rule is show reaction quickly. So if you talk to someone enters the room, don't turn around like that. If someone has a question, don't do. Got it? Because from that moment on, they all think about you like... So from the first moment on, show quick reaction. When you talk to someone enters the room, turn to them quickly. If you are doing a presentation and you are on flight 75, I know how many slides you use. You are at slide 75 and someone has a question and you think, no, first I want to finish my slides. Then the people are not connected to you. So what you should do is turn around, give them the appreciation and say, let me finish that first and then I'm with you, and then you continue with your slides. If you talk to someone has a question, quickly turn to them and say, I finished that, then I'm with you, and then you continue your chat. So people, human beings are eager to be appreciated. That's the first thing, to be a likable person, getting the feeling that you realized me. Number one. Number two is, how do you do that? You don't have to have that temperament that I have. You can also do it with the temperament of Angela Merkel. It's easy because you have something in your face that gives you that tool, and that is your eyebrows. Raise your eyebrows. Raise your eyebrows. I just want to see who of you is using botulinum toxin. Yeah? Raise your eyebrows. Yeah. And now, turn to the person next to you and say one sentence to that person with one rule. No movement in the eyebrows. Just turn to them and say to them, you are also here. Yes, and now let's do that again with a small change, and that is, we take the same sentence, you are also here, but with the word we raise the eyebrows. Let's do that together. And get the difference? I hope you out there in the screens, when you have someone in the room and they enter the room and you say, you are also here. Switch to a different homepage, okay? Might be difficult. So raise your eyebrows. That is very important. And finally, to be a likable person, there's one thing you all know, and that is smile more. Smile more. Too many clever people sit in meetings, do presentations, and they always think the most earnest one is the most clever one. You know that from university, you know that from school. But from the first moment on, we just want to be attracted by a person. And that is why smile more. And don't be afraid to smile too much. In the world, we don't see that many smiling people. But you don't have to smile all the way through the day. It looks a little bit silly if you smile all day. Okay, got it? Especially if you raise the eyebrows, you know. There are special doctors for that, but you don't want to go to them. So smile more, that is very important. And the reason for that is you appear more self-confident, because we have a hormone that is called cortisol that is synthesized in the adrenal gland. So this hormone is synthesized, and this hormone raises our stress level. So if your cortisol level is very high, your facial expression is something like that. You know what? When you go to the date with that facial expression, you will stay single. Okay? And it is the same when you do a presentation. If you talk like that, people are happy if it is over. So smile more. And the rule of thumb is, try to have a facial expression where the corners of your mouth are a little bit closer to a smiling face than to a serious face. So if you're up there with your corners of your mouth, you signal, well, I am in control of everything. When you start a presentation, when you show someone something, when you meet someone, raise the corners of your mouth. And some of you might think, but there are situations where you shouldn't smile. You know, in my life, in my work, I'm 50 years now. In my work, I have worked with people who are really on the brink of death. I work for hospices. I work for children's hospices. And you know what? The worst thing you can do is entering a hospice with that facial expression. You know what you bring into the hospice? You bring death into the hospice. But you know, those children in the hospice, they only want one thing, and that is life. They want life. And that is why a smiling face is so important. But in the end, you will realize it's not always about being nice. Sometimes you have to be tough. Sometimes you have to be very competent. Competence comes out of likability. And you all want to be very assertive, very competent. But I know one thing about you all. Not even your children do what you ask them to do. And that is the problem. You know, Monday morning, you clean up your room, you clean up the kitchen, and you say to the children, before you go to school, you clean your room. And then you run to the bathroom. And while you're running there, you ask again, what's with your room? Is it cleaned up already? Then you brush your teeth and ask for the first time, children, what's with your rooms? You know what? The children at that moment heard the information for 3 times. They already got it by the first time. But you know what? Your body language promised this information is not to be taken serious. And the problem with you is not that you didn't say it. The problem is that your body language didn't promise assertiveness. And that is why now you get a technique. If you use that technique with your children won't only clean their room, they will clean the whole house. And the rule is called N rule. Because if you talk to your children cleaning the kitchen and over the shoulder you say clean your room, then you run to the bathroom, again over the shoulder, what's with your room, then you brush your teeth, again over the shoulder, please clean your room. The information is that is not important. And here comes the N rule. If you want your children to follow you, to obey you, turn to them the first N, and that is the nose. Turn the second N, and that is the navel. Then you tilt your head a little bit like Clint Eastwood did that, and you say, clean your room. And then you remain in that position without any explanations until you get a reaction. And with children, normally the reaction is, okay. That is the N rule. If you want to be assertive, you change your body language from the likable, from the nice body language to the N rule, and from that moment on, you are very assertive. So the body language of competence is not belly in, chest out. The body language is the change from this loose, from this asymmetrical body language to the very strict and earnest body language. So if we complete all of that, we have a takeaway message. Number 1, bonding comes always before competence. Bond with your audience. Number 2, be quick-witted, and quick-witted signals are quick signals. Number 3, the N rule for competence. And last and foremost and very important, ladies and gentlemen, and all out there, just be a nice person. Thank you.